Thank you, girls. You're a credit to the nation. You really are. Well, you've got a lot tonight, as you've seen. Beautiful, leggy dancing girls, slapstick comedians, sentimental songs as we celebrate those dear, departed days of music hall, recalling in particular the genius of Flanagan and Allen and the Crazy Gang. The reason for this is a show opening in London in a week's time called Underneath the Arches. It's the Flanagan and Allen story told in music and song. Later on in the show, we'll meet Chesney Allen, now 88 years old, but still in fine fettle, as you'll see, and the actor who plays him on stage in this production, Christopher Timothy. But first, the man whose love of music hall in general, and Flanagan and Allen in particular, was the inspiration for this production. He plays Bud Flanagan on stage, and he's one of the most versatile entertainers we've got. Ladies and gentlemen, Roy Hudd.
Well, that was lovely. I think I'll go off while I'm winning.
It kind of started here, didn't it?
Well, that was the sort of seed of the show, I think. Patrick Garland, who runs the Festival Theatre at Chichester, saw the show I did with you, and Ches and I bust a couple of numbers, and so did Harry Stoneham. It was great. Yeah. And I think that gave him the idea for the show.
Yeah. And what's the sort of, how have you approached it? How have you told the story?
Well, we had a marvellous storyline to start with, which was written by Brian Glanville, who's a football correspondent.
No colleague of mine.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he wrote a marvellous storyline, and Pat Garland had a tickle at that. And then they brought me in to sort of put in this sort of showbiz element, all the comedy sketches and the bits and pieces like that. And really, it's just grown because all the boys like Don, Tommy and Billy and Joe and everybody have stuck in gags and sort of improved it as we've gone along.
Is it true that it was said by Bud Flanagan himself that if ever they did his life story, he wanted you to play the part?
That's what his missus told me, Curly,
really?
who was really nice. And I met Bud obviously just before he died when I first joined the Water Rats. And Bud was a sort of very, very famous water rat. And I knew Curly through that, and she said to me, you know, Bud said if ever they do his life story, he'd like you to play it. I couldn't believe it when old Pat Garland rang up and said, would you like to do it? I thought it was great.
What about the Crazy Gang? How far do your memories go back on that? Because I know you love music halls.
Yeah, well, my gran was the inspiration there, because my gran brought me up. She used to take me to the Croydon Empire every week to see the variety, and if she was feeling a bit flush, you know, we'd go up to the Victoria Palace and see the Crazy Gang shows. And funny, from a little baby, I remember sort of like the two images I remember ever that I first saw on stage, and one, of course, was this man in this floral suit with the +4s and the white hat, Max Miller.
Your great hero.
That's right. And the second image I had was a man in a fur coat and an old busted-up boater. I don't know what they did, but I just remember those particular things.
What about, did you ever work with any of the Crazy Gang at all?
Yeah, I did. I had the great joy of doing a funny thing happened on the way to the Forum at Coventry, and we had Monsieur Eddie Gray and Charlie Norton in that. What a couple of characters. I mean, you know, they'd played it in the West End, I believe, but oh dear, they drove me crazy.
Why, in what way?
Well, a lovely couple of blokes, you know. And old Eddie Gray, I used to, well, as I walked down to the theatre at Coventry every night, I used to pick him up from the betting shop. He was always in the betting shop, you know. And I used to pick him up, I'd look in the betting shop door and say, come on, Eddie, half an hour, please. And he'd say, all right. We'd go down to the theatre. And he always was pulling strokes all the way. And we come out the betting shop one day, and we're walking along, and there's a pillar box there, you see, which is one of his favourite props. He loved pillar boxes. And he said, just a minute. And he looked in the slot in the pillar box like this, you see. And he said, well, how did you get in there? Yes, slot, you see. And the fella stopped walking by, and he said, what's the matter? He said, fella in here, a postman. He said, been collecting the letters. He said, the door's slammed behind him, he's locked in the pillar box. And that started it, you see. And he said, well, don't panic. He said, you'll be all right. You all right? Yeah. And he said, a couple of other fellas came over. He said, just keep talking to him. He said, he's panic-stricken. He said, just keep talking to him. I'll go down to the post offices and get someone to let him out. And the last thing I saw was about 5 blokes all around his postbox looking at him saying, you're all right, aren't you? You're all right? I think he's fainted.
What about the other man you mentioned there, Monsieur Gray, the legendary man there?
Oh, that's the man, Eddie Gray, yeah. Well, Charlie Norton was a funny character too, you know. And he used to live fairly near me when I lived in Streatham. And he had a flat in the High in Streatham. And Charlie, what he used to do, he used to come out of the shows at the Victoria Palace, and he'd go to a little club there, you know, and he'd sit and he'd yarn away and he'd drink half the night, you know. And he usually used to get out of there about 6 o'clock in the morning, well to the wind. And he used to walk about in the street there, and all the cab drivers knew him, you see, and they used to say, don't worry, Charlie, and they'd pick him up, put him in the cab, take him back to Streatham, and the next night they'd come round the Victoria Palace and say, I took you home last night, Charlie. He said, did you do that? And they used to say, yeah, he used to pay him the money. So he wasn't very well, so he went to see the doctor, and the doctor said, well, the trouble is, he said, oh, it's simple, isn't it? He said, you're 78, whatever it is. He said, you're going out drinking all night. I said, it's no good. He said, you've got to get some early nights. He said, get up in the morning, get a bit of fresh air. So he goes back to Streatham, and he thinks, I'll try it, you know. So he gets up about 6:30 in the morning. 7 o'clock, he's walking around Streatham Common. And a taxi pulled up and said, don't worry, Charlie, we'll get you home. Put him in the cab.
What's your fascination for this particular era, though, apart from the rich characters who obviously do fascinate you?
Yeah, it's the songs I love.
Really?
I love the songs because they had lovely melodies and they had narratives, you know, sort of narratives, and they had nice emotions. I mean, every single song you hear today, apart from people like Chaz and Dave and Ian Dury sometimes, you know, all the songs are about love. All about love, about losing somebody, finding somebody, falling in love, all of them. Well, the songs in the old days weren't that. They were narratives, they were funny, they talked about ordinary people, ordinary things. That's why I love the songs so much.
In fact, you've written a play, haven't you, about an American songwriter, or you've written an entertainment about him.
That's right, I call it a musical melodrama. There's posh for you.
That's right.
And it's the story of Stephen Foster, the American songwriter. Now, he had a most fascinating life, but of course he also wrote some beautiful melodies. I Dream of Jeannie with the Light Brown Hair, Beautiful Dreamer, The Old Folks at Home, Oh Susanna, Don't You Cry for Me. People think they're folk songs, but they're not. They were written by this man. So his life story is so melodramatic that I thought the only way you could put it on stage was to do it as like a musical melodrama. So in effect, I've used the elements of things that I saw when I was a child and used them in modern sort of stories.
What was the melodrama in his life?
In Stephen Foster's life?
Yes.
Well, it's incredible because he came from a middle-class American family, and they were all very sort of business-minded. They were all in business and things like that. And this strange child came along whose one talent was writing music. And I think the tragedy of his life was he could never reconcile himself to the fact that writing songs was a job, because he did write songs. He sold them for $10 a time to the minstrels. He sold The Old Folks at Home, which must be one of the most famous songs in the world, to Christie, E.P. Christie of Christie's Minstrels, for $15. And he only got the extra $5 out of it for it. He normally sold it for 10. And Christie said, oh, well, I want my name on the cover as the composer. So he said, all right, so he gave him another $5. And slowly he sort of went downhill and couldn't reconcile, and he became a terrible sort of boozer and alcoholic. And he died, he was about 30 in America, and he died penniless. They found in his pocket when he was dead a little purse, and it had 35 cents in it, and a little scrap of paper on which it said, Dear Friends and Gentle Hearts. And that must have been the title of a new song.
Of course, songs like that you've been mentioning and that fascinate you, people, in fact, don't think there was any one composer who did them, do they?
They never do.
The folk songs, in a sense.
Well, that's right. It's like you take songs like I'm Henry VIII, I Am, Joshua, Joshua, Knees Up, Mother Brown. People think they're all folk songs and nobody made them up, but they were actually written by two great English songwriters called Weston and Lee, who wrote so many hits. They wrote about 3,000 songs in a 20-year partnership, these two. Well, they wrote some great ones as well. I mean, they said, well, okay, people said, have you had so many hits? I said, well, if you write 3,000, you've got to get one or two in, haven't you? I did a show with Billy Dainty last year, and we played these two songwriters, and they had some marvellous songs that never did hit the top, but we did a little medley of them, and the marvellous one was one called Tripe, Tripe, Beautiful Tripe. It's a gradely sight, is a plate of tripe.
That wasn't a hit, needless to say.
Oh, there's another lovely one you like called Thermogene.
I remember Thermogene.
You do?
Oh, indeed I do.
You're still wearing some, I see.
Is that why you're sitting back like that?
That's right. That was a Thermogene, Thermogene, my beautiful Thermogene. You're pink and fluffy and soft to the touch. You're the nicest bit of fluff I've seen. Though now and then you may cling to other men, I'm not all that I might have been. So when I'm at rest, just lay on my chest and tickle me, Thermogene.
Great. Let's go back now to the show that you're going into the Prince of Wales with in a week's time. Let's talk a little bit about this legendary group of people called the Crazy Gang. They were renowned as practical jokers, weren't they?
They were, yeah.
Particularly with people who worked with them on stage.
That's right.
They're also a little bit cruel at times, weren't they? I mean, do you have an example of that?
Yeah, I think they were. I mean, they were cruel but funny, you see. I mean, it was the old gag of that Groucho Marx. Someone was telling me just before the show, and Groucho Marx said, well, the difference between what professional funny men laugh at and ordinary people laugh at. Groucho Marx said, now ordinary people laugh if there's a man dressed as a little old lady on a bike going downhill and hitting a wall at the bottom. He said, now they'd laugh, he said, the ordinary people. Professional comedians only laugh if it was a real old lady.
That's very, very... I didn't know that before. That's a marvellous description.
Now, they had a lady at their show with them at one of the crazy game shows called Edna Squires Brown. Now, her act was she did an act with doves. I don't know what you're thinking. When she played in the continent, apparently, she used to work nude, you know. But the idea of the act was that she used to open this box on the stage, and all these lovely doves used to come out, and they used to run all over her, and she used to stand like this, you see. And the tag of the act was she used to look up to the gallery like that, go like this, and all these multicoloured doves would fly down from the gallery and land on a blackout finish, you see. And all Eddie Gray and Charlie Norton did one afternoon was just change the two boxes of doves over, you see. So, because the ones on the stage had all their wings clipped, you see, so they couldn't fly away. The ones that used to come down the spotlight didn't have their wings clipped. So she opened the box on stage and they were everywhere, all over the auction. The fella at the top opens the box, tips them out, and they all drop like stones.
And that's only funny if they're live doves.
Of course it is.
Right, absolutely. We've got a clip, actually. I don't know, have we put it up of Eddie Gray, actually, in action, just to remind the generation who never saw him. Just talk over it a bit, Roy, because it's a juggling thing he's doing here.
I think it's probably one of the rarest bits of film ever, because I don't think there is any film, really. There's only one small clip, I think, of Eddie Gray. Oh, there he is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, now, the great thing is, you'll see Eddie there. And you'll see Billy Gray in our show, who's his brother, of course. He wore this makeup, which was... When he took that makeup off, you see, he was totally unrecognisable. That's why he could get away with all these...
With all the practical
jokes, yeah. I mean, there's a post box. I believe it's in Victoria Street now, that they were planting this post box, you know, the GPO, and he turns up without the moustache or anything, and he looked very distinguished, you know, with the bowler hat and everything. He said to the GPO man, he showed his Variety Artists Federation card, you see, and said, GPO, he said, situation sighting, he said, there we are. He said, now, what are you doing here? They said, we've got to put this post box here. He said, no. He said, it's wrong. He said, it should be over that side of the road. So they moved the post box and they put it over the other side of the road. And the great gag was, he said, no, it should be turned round, you see. And it's still there to this day. And the actual letter box isn't pointing in the road. So if you want to post a letter there, it's one of them jobs, you know. You could get away with it.
Let's talk about the man that you played the part of in Underneath the Arches, Bud Flanagan.
Yeah.
He was a fascinating man, wasn't he? He came from an extraordinary background.
He did, an incredible background. I mean, a marvellous, a typical sort of East End Cockney background. His family came from Poland, you know, and they ran away, believe it or not, everything goes in circles, to escape trouble there. They got on a boat. They were going to New York, and they gave the fellow the money. They got on the boat. Actually, he took them around the corner to England. And apparently it was about 4 weeks before they realised they weren't in America. Really? Because they didn't speak English. They said, Jewish family and everything. And he was brought up with all that sort of marvellous sort of, all those different people, different nationalities in the East of London. At 14, he ran away and, you know, got on board ship and went to America at the age of 14 years of age. And he told them he was a qualified electrician, and they believed him. 14, you're going to be, aren't you?
Yeah,
you
right.
know?
And how did he live in America? What kind of work did he do?
He did practically everything there was to do. He sold newspapers. He was a Western Union telegraph boy. He worked in a feather duster factory. We haven't got that bit in. And he did all sorts of things. He sang for his supper in brothels. He sort of travelled all over there trying to get into show business. And an unbelievable thing happened to him when he was selling newspapers on the corner. A fellow who was a regular customer who came up to him and he said, you've got a good face. He said, I am a theatrical producer. I believe it, that's like something out of a Hollywood musical.
Right,
and he said, I want you to play the part of a bellboy in this particular play. And off Bud went, and he played the part of a bellboy, and that's actually got him into show business in America.
He was a great walker too, wasn't he?
Oh, he walked everywhere. He walked from London to Southampton to get on the ship. And at one stage in his career, he got a job in Glasgow, and he walked from London to Glasgow. It took him 3 weeks to walk there, and he starved practically on the way. People were very friendly to him on the way. He was a great walker, and yet Curly told me a story. He said he always wanted to go walking again. She said, so we had a holiday one time, she said, and he said, I know what we'll do, we'll have a walking tour. And they live somewhere in the West End there somewhere. So they get all kitted out, you know, the shorts, the boots and everything. And they said, OK, off we go. They set off about 10 o'clock in the morning, and all the cabs are going past, laugh, you know. And he only got about 100 yards. He said, I've had enough of this, we'll go to France. There's one story that Bud used to tell, and this really summed up for me. His whole feeling, you know, this was his sort of comedy, his sort of feeling, his background, everything. And it was a story that he always used to tell about a Cockney fella tries to get a job on board a ship, you see. So the purser's signing everybody up, and he goes up to this fella, and the purser says, "What's your name?" He said, "Higgins." He said, "Where are you from?" He said, "Bermondsey." He said, "Have you got a criminal record?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "I'm asking you." He said, "Have you got a criminal record?" He said, "No, I haven't got a criminal record." He said, "You assuring me you haven't got a criminal record?" He said, "I haven't got a criminal record. What you on about?" He said, "All right, we'll take a chance, we'll take you on." Next fella comes up, he said, "What's your name?" He said, "Svensson." He said, "Where are you from?" He said, "Sweden." He said, "All right, you got the job, go on." Cockney fella said, "Wait a minute." He said, "What's all this about?" "Higgins from Bermondsey. Have you got a criminal record? You sure you haven't got a criminal record?" "Svensson from Sweden." He said, "All right, on you go." He said, "What's the difference between us two?" He said, "The difference is," he said, "he's got an honest face." So anyway, they've been at sea about a month, and they're both on the deck, you see, swabbing the decks like this. Big wave comes over, knocks the Swedish fella overboard. So the Cockney fella goes running down, knocks on the purser's office. The purser said, "Yes." He said, "You know that Swedish fella with the honest face?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Just buggered off with your mop."
Well, let's now... The nice thing about this show is that apart from the nostalgia, which is a very nostalgic show you're going to do, it's got dancing girls in and production numbers and all that sort of thing.
Interesting, Mike, because we had a lot of young people came to see it when we first did it at Chichester, and I said, "Well, there's no nostalgia for you." They said, "We just thought it was a marvellous show. We'd never seen a show like it before, with all those gags, running gags, built-in gags, into the audience, upsetting people, lovely melodies, you know."
Right, and we're going to... What's the number we're going to do now, then, to set
This
us
one.
off? Yes.
Now, this is an interesting man who wrote a lot of numbers for the gang, show numbers that they called, and a man called Ross Parker, and he wrote a song called "Just for Laughs." Marvellous title. It's what I'd like to have on my tombstone when I die, just that underneath it. And he did write the song for what actually did turn out to be the gang's last show. Got some lovely words, and one little bit towards the end, he said, "Let them say, funny fellow, come what may, always play Punchinello. It's the greatest of all epitaphs. When they say you played it just for laughs. Just for laughs, keep on trying. Just for laughs, then there's no time for crying. Act the fool when there's a crowd. Watch them smile in a while, they'll be laughing out loud. Let them say, funny fellow, come what may, always play Punchinello. It's the greatest of all every time. When they say you played it just for laughs. Yes, every little line. Whoa! It's the greatest of all every time. But they say you played it just for every little line. Whoa!
That was
Keep going, you fool. I tell you.
That was smashing.
It must be jelly, because jam don't shake like that.
All right. So, well, just for the moment, that was smashing. I really enjoyed that. A real sort of flavour of the show. So, Roy Hood, for the moment, thank you very much indeed. Roy Hood. Now, my next guest plays Chesney Allen in the show. He's a versatile fellow, in one year appearing as Christopher Crumble in Babes in the Wood and Jesus of Nazareth in the York Mystery Plays. He's best known, however, for his portrayal of James Herriot in that lovely television series, All Creatures Great and Small. Ladies and gentlemen, Christopher Timothy. come to get this part, Christopher? Because you're not renowned as a comedian or a song and dance man, are you?
No, and when you see the show, you'll know why. Patrick directed the mystery plays, Patrick Garland, in York, and we got on very well. And at the time we were rehearsing, he learned that he'd achieved the directorship of Chichester for 3 years. And that's every actor's dream, at least it was, to go to Chichester. And so I kept dropping subtle hints like, please can I come to Chichester? And he kept very quiet about it. And then finally he said, come to Chichester. And he couldn't tell me what the parts were. But I wanted to go so badly that I said, okay, I'll wait and see. So I turned down a couple of things, which were no consequence really. But I actually waited and hoped that it was going to be good. One was Trefoil from the Cherry Orchard, which I very much wanted to do. And suddenly he said, are you a song and dance man? So I said, no. He said, well, in that case, would you like to play Chesney Allen? Which is no disrespect to Ches at all. And anyway, that's how I got it.
How was it like, though, having as your part a man who's still alive and, of course, who's there in the show, watching you, be him?
Yeah. Well, it's okay. I mean, the same thing happened with James Herriot. Everyone said, what's it like playing a man who actually exists? And it didn't really worry me too much. The worst thing was on the last dress rehearsal, I think, and I've been saying a particular line for a long time, which was, we gave our very last performance in 1961. And a voice in the back of the stalls, Chesney, said, 62. That was the only time, and he was right, he was 62, because he still remembered.
It must have been even more daunting, too, I suppose, playing the part of Jesus of Nazareth in the mystery plays. I mean, how do you go about deciding what kind of character he is?
He was definitely Jewish.
Well, he definitely is, that we know.
I just saw that Patrick wanted an actor to play it, and so I went to my agent and said, I want to play Jesus, please. And he said, do you? And his female assistant said, do you? I said, well, you don't think I could do it? She said, well, as long as they don't want a pretty Jesus. Oh, great, that's the sort of agent to have, isn't it? And so the next day I got a phone call from my agent saying he wants to see you. I thought, well, there's an agent for you. And I went to see him, convinced that I had to impress him, that I was right. And then somebody said on the way, don't forget, he's very cool and laid back. At least Jesus was very cool and laid back. And as I am totally not cool and totally not laid back, I spent the time with Patrick in the office trying to be, I didn't know what cool and laid back was, Ray, but I thought of all the big stars you have on who go. You know, I kept falling off the thing and...
They're not cool and laid back, they're drunk.
Cool and falling over.
Cool and falling over, yeah, propped up. Not
Well,
laid
apparently
back.
he wanted me to do it anyway. I mean, he wanted me to do it before I asked him. He wanted Michael York first, but he couldn't do it. I'm so sad he couldn't do it.
Were there any examples of divine intervention when you were playing the part?
Yeah, well, the first one was that I got the part in the first place. It was, we had a guy playing God who, in his 50s,
He must have been an agent.
He had already had 2 strokes. I happen to know that because we spent a lot of time talking. And my first introduction, I played, as the play opened, I didn't play Jesus, I played every man who came on and said, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the mystery plays, and introduced the characters. And towards the end of it, I had to say, and now God comes on. And all through rehearsals, he'd been just behind me, and I turned around and pointed to him. And on the first night, for the first time, I said, and now God comes on. And a voice went, hey! And he was right at the top of the arches we used, which were the old ruins of an abbey. Very, very high up. And I'd been up there on a crane because I ascended into heaven towards the end. And that's not easy. It really isn't easy.
Jesus never had a crane, did he?
That's too right. Too right. How did he do it? And
miracle.
It was rocky and dangerous. And I thought of his stroke, his very heavy costume, which billowed in the wind. So I thought one false move and he'd be. Anyway, that was fine. He was up there and it looked fantastic. In rehearsals, he'd had a carrier pigeon, which when he talked about the birds of the air, he'd throw it out from behind. He had one of those clips that conjurers use. And it my mouth dried up. I knew it would.
Yeah, they are.
Oh, thank you. Cheers.
There you are.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ness. He threw the pigeon, and it used to fly straight to Harrogate, because that's where it lived. Right? Makes a lot of sense, doesn't
All God's pigeons come from Harry.
Shut up, Roy. On the first night, which was a bit special anyway, he threw the pigeon up in the air. It circled around his head. It flew around the perimeter of the area in which the audience and we were, and went back and stayed on his shoulder until the end of the scene. And I don't believe, I'm actually not a Christian, but there was a moment when I thought, can you do that every night? Because it was magic. And later on, a few days later, when I was dying on the cross, which was very uncomfortable, the sound boys, who were fantastic, had arranged that on my last breath, a sort of death rattle, there was a clap of thunder, as recorded in the Bible. And it was a very effective moment. One particular afternoon, we did a matinee and an evening show, now and again. I did my last breath, and there was a clap of thunder. I thought, blimey, they got the volume up. And the rain came down. Now, it didn't pour down, it just came down as one imagines it did then. It was amazing. And we all said afterwards, oh, that's a coincidence. And it happened again that night at exactly the same time. No half-a-second difference, exactly the same time. And that's when we all thought, right, no swearing backstage. It was a magic experience, wonderful.
What about, just let's talk briefly, before we start talking about the show you're in now, about All Creatures Great and Small, which is a lovely series. I think one of the most popular series that's been on television for a long, long time.
Great.
But how deep was the public reaction toward you about you actually being a vet? I mean, did people actually bring their animals to you to be cured?
Not really. I mean, children used to occasionally write and say, I want to be a vet just like you. And I thought, if you're a vet just like me, you don't qualify. You know?
Yes.
So I know nothing, and I'm Ben, not much more now than when I started. Once, it was just after I had a very bad accident, I was hopping around, and I really didn't want to talk to anybody. I wanted to get out of the rehearsals, into physiotherapy, and into bed. And I got out of the taxi, and it was a very short hop from there to the door. And a little lady in her 40s ran like a bat out of hell towards me and just caught me. I tried to make the door and didn't make it. And she said, I'm awfully sorry, but my job doesn't give me time to take my dog to the vet. Would you please, please come home and look at my dog? And I tried to make light of it, you know. I said, if I came back and looked at your dog and it's ill and diagnosed it, it will die. Her face went ashen. She said, no, it wouldn't. I trust you, Please come back. 20 minutes, I tried to convince her, and I didn't. I didn't go back, because it would have been more serious.
Yes. Let's talk now about this production you're going into next week, playing Chesney Allen. Now, what's it like playing with comedians, with this gang of lunatics like him there?
This is live, isn't it? I mean,
this is live. You can say you're live.
Well, in that case, they're smashing. No, they are. They're wonderful. I think a lot of them must. I mean, I know a lot of people's reaction. I know Roy's reaction when he heard that. Well, you said.
Well, I said exactly that. And I said, who's playing Ches then in this? And they said, Christopher Timothy. I said, what, the vet? What's he doing in it? I said, I can't see that at all. But I mean, he's absolutely great in it.
Has he taken to it?
He's marvellous in it, because he's got the one great thing that every straight needs, and that's authority.
Yes.
And he can shut me up, and Don and Tommy and Bill and everybody. He shuts us up and he gets us onto it. He's great.
Can he do the business, though?
Oh, well, I tell you what. Comics have a sort of shorthand, you know?
Yeah.
And, well, as we all know, you know, so we brought up in concert party and all that, and if there was a stage wait or anything like that, so we'll do the so-and-so. Now, he knows one or two, so I'll see if he remembers this one, Joe. Do you want us to try one?
Yeah.
All right, do you want to try one?
Yeah.
Okay, well, something's happened. The scenery's fallen over. Go on.
Ladies and gentlemen, the scene is set in the maternity wing of a famous London hospital. This is a worrying time.
You're telling me.
It's a particularly worrying time for me.
How's that?
I'm on my holiday.
It's even more worrying for me.
Why is that?
I'm on my honeymoon.
Get on. Let me show you some of the things that we're going to do.
Some of the things you do in the show.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, a recitation. There is a yellow idol to the north of Kathmandu.
Excuse me? How many hairs on a pig's face?
I don't know how many hairs on a pig's face.
Count them next time you shave.
There was a yellow idol. Yes.
I can't do it. You can't do it. The Prime Minister can't do it, and Ray Buckton can't do it.
Can't do what?
Milk chocolate.
There's a little yellow... Where are you going?
Hunting.
Where are your trousers?
That's what I'm hunting for.
Get off.
Hey, Ches. Come here. How did the male elephant find the female elephant in the long grass?
I don't know. How did the male elephant find the female elephant in the long grass?
Delightful. You're working well.
See what I mean?
Hello.
Can I help you?
Yeah, I'm a mystic.
A mystic? What's that?
Mystic. Do you think he'd like his palm read?
I'm sure he'd like his
I
palm read.
wouldn't be at all surprised. There we are, sir. Thank you very much indeed.
You're a messy son.
Go on, Mike. Now
What
look,
do we do with that?
now look sophisticated, Mike.
Les Patterson strikes back. So that's...
That's
God
something you
almighty,
never do.
Roy. Really?
You can't wait to see the show now, can
No, I can't wait to see the show, no. But that's the sort of thing, I mean, that's what... Oh, honestly. That happens.
You did use the indelible stuff, didn't you, fellas? Yeah, great.
Truth. You messy devil. But that's the sort of thing, and worse, that used to happen for real, and that's what you're kind of interwoven, isn't it, into... You're a wicked. Just you wait. I'll get you later. Don't you worry about that.
I've enjoyed the show.
Yeah, right. Okay, so now we're going to do a little number featuring you and Christopher, a recreation of one of the great Flanagan and Allen numbers. Which is it to be?
This is one called The Umbrella Man.
The Umbrella Man. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Bud and Ches. We're now going to feature, as I said, one of the classic Flanagan and Allen routines. It was an American song featured in a sketch called A Scene from the Screen. It turned out to be a highlight of the show it appeared in called These Foolish Things. It was sung by Flanagan and Allen in that show in 1938. Revived now by Christopher and Roy. The song, as we've said, is Umbrella Man.
Any umbrellas to mend today. Ring your parasol, it may be small, it may be big. I'll repair them all with what I call a thingamajig. Pitter-patter, patter, pitter-patter, patter, here comes the rain. Let it pitter-patter, let it pitter-patter, don't mind the rain. I'll mend your umbrella, then go on my way, singing toodaloo-ma-loo-ma, toodalay, toodaloo-ma-loo-ma, toodalay. Any umbrellas to mend today.
When there's a lull and things are dull, I sharpen knives for all the wives in the neighborhood. And I'm very good.
I'll darn a sock, I'll mend a clock, an apple cart, a broken heart, I'll mend anything, but I'd rather sing. Toodaloo-ma-loo-ma, toodaloo-ma-loo-ma, toodaloo. Any umbrellas to mend today. I'll patch up your troubles, then go on my way, singing toodaloo-ma-loo-ma, toodalay, toodaloo-ma-loo-ma, toodalay. Any umbrellas to mend today. Your troubles, then go on my way, singing toodaloo-ma-loo-ma, toodalay, toodaloo-ma-loo-ma, toodalay. Any umbrellas to mend today.
enjoy the singing bit?
I enjoyed the rehearsal.
You enjoy the rehearsal,
Yeah,
do you?
I'm terrified. I'm terrified.
You're
It's better than it was. But
You're a bit nervous, are you, about
ever
the opening?
so slightly.
Yeah, right, well, it sounds nice. It looked good. Yeah, it'll be all right, I'm sure. For the moment, Christopher Timothy, thank you very much indeed. Christopher
Thank you.
Timothy. Right. Now, the show which opens in a week's time has, of course, a very special meaning to one man, one half of the legendary Flanagan and Allen. He's 88 years old, still chirpy, still working. Ladies and gentlemen, Chesney Allen. You don't get any older, actually. You look the same now as you did when I last interviewed you when you were 86.
That's right.
You still
10 years ago.
10 years ago, yeah. You've been busy, haven't you, since last we met?
Yes, I have been. All your fault, Michael.
All my fault, is
Yes,
it?
absolutely.
Why is that?
Well, after all, I've been retired for years and years, having a tranquil, serene life in a little village. And along comes your Mr. John Fisher, asked me if I'd write the foreword to a book called On a Way to Be a Hero.
That's right.
And you wrote the afterpiece.
I did indeed.
That's right. And from then he said, Chesney, I think you should do a Parkinson show. And he persuaded me, and I did. And so it was your fault. From then on, Generation Game, Pebble Mill,
Oh, dear.
Looks Familiar, Old Boy Network. Patrick Garland persuaded me to go to Chichester. He said, collaborate on this, Chesney. And he said, would you make a brief appearance, which I did. And then we come back here. He said, we're going to the Prince of Wales Theatre. Did you go? And so here we are. I arrived back here at the Prince of Wales Theatre, and it's a full circle because my career finished at the Prince of Wales.
That's right. How many?
37 years ago.
37 years ago.
Yes, it did.
The very
yes.
same theatre.
Yes, it did. And
Yeah. What was Bud's reaction when
Oh.
you broke up? Because you had to
Well,
because of your health, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Well, he was terribly, terribly upset. Well, just one of those things. But anyway, I had to finish at the time. But before I did, I just got in a taxi across to Jack Hilton and arranged a pantomime for him. And then I went to the nursing home when I came out. And I arranged another show for him, The Night and the Laughter, at the Coliseum. But he wasn't happy. Wasn't at all happy. So I eventually got the Crazy Gang back
That's
together
right.
again.
Yes. Yes, you
And,
managed them,
then
didn't
it
you?
was, then it was just wonderful. They started all again.
When did you first get together with Bud? Because you actually met him in the war, didn't you? The First World War.
Yes, I did. I met Bud in 1916 in a little village of Popperins, just behind the front line. I was transferred from the cavalry to the infantry, and I was at West Kent, and he was an artilleryman. And we had a little chat. His name was Robert Winthrop. Usual thing about home and what we did, civil life, things like that. And we parted and shook hands, and in the little stamina it was, we were all having a drink and eggs and chips, just out of the line. And I next met him in Piccadilly Circus. I was very lucky, I was at the Criterion Theatre, only because an actor fell out. He became a peer, Lord Cowley, whose name was Wellesley, and I went in. And then Bud was doing a double act, Harlem and Bronx. He was blacked up in those days.
Was he?
And then we met again in Glasgow, Glasgow Empire. I was now with Florrie Ford, and my wife was a leading lady, and I was not only managing, but I wanted a partner. And Bud came along. He wasn't very happy. He was at Kilmarnock, and he said, I'm Chick Harlan, you remember? And we had a long chat, and the result was that a partnership started. We met, and Florrie was very happy. Florrie Ford said, Ches, I leave it to you.
Where did he get the Flanagan from?
Well, he got the Flanagan from a sergeant major in the army who didn't like Bud very much, and he said, you swine, I'll remember you. I'll never forget you. I'll let everybody know about you. I'll call myself Flanagan and everybody will laugh at you.
Really?
That was the reason.
Because the Sergeant Major was anti-Semitic?
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
And that was that, and it was a wonderful partnership. A partnership not only on but off the stage. Great friendship. The same year, I had another wonderful partnership for me because I married our leading lady.
Yes.
Alita
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
And that's lasted 56 years.
That's not
so
bad. You've done all right.
That isn't too bad, is
Right.
it?
Now, how's he making out, anyway?
Wonderful.
Is he?
Wonderful.
Is he?
Wonderful. It's uncanny. It's this peculiar feeling, sitting in the dressing room, hearing Christopher sing underneath the arches and singing Umbrella Man. It's a very peculiar, it's an extraordinary feeling you have.
We heard Roy talking earlier on about the experiences of the legendary Crazy Gang. I mean,
yeah.
you were actually there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what sort of tricks did, in fact, they get up to?
Oh, all sorts. Well, all sorts of games. They rode down Regent Street in a cage, all the gang, with funny makeups, you know, making faces at the people and throwing oranges at them, and walking around into Argyle Street to the Palladium. And of course, Eddie was a great man. He was the funniest man of all. I know Roy's told you one or two stories about Eddie and Charlie, but another very good one about Eddie Gray was we were making a film at Lime Grove in 1937, Gas Bags, and Eddie came along to see us. So we came up to Lime Grove, and of course there's a hefty doorkeeper there. He couldn't get in without a pass and things, and no one knew Eddie Gray off, you know, because he looked like a city gent. And he went up to the hallkeeper and he said, I want to go. So it's just a moment, sir, your name? He said, my name? Sir Malcolm Sargent. So he said, oh, I'm sorry, Sir Malcolm. He went in, we had a chat at lunchtime. He said to Charlie Norton, come on, Charlie, we'll go out and have a drink and a snack. So they came out through the gates, the hefty doorkeeper's still there, and he said, oh, yeah, it's all right, Sir Malcolm. I shall know you next time. Opened the door of his car. He said, wonderful, Sir Malcolm. I know you now, but he said, who is your friend? Little Charlie got in the back. He said, who? Ivy Benson.
No, well, we're going to see a bit of business now, actually, that
Yeah.
the Crazy Gang used to do. You said, told me it's one of their older sketches, isn't it?
Which
This
one?
one we're going to see now, the Principal Boys.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, we did that in the very early days at the Palladium.
Right, okay. So, Chris, you've got to do a little bit of introduction to this, haven't you? Would you do that?
Sure.
Right, sir, where you go.
Are you ready, boys? When you were young and you went to a show in the park, you laughed and you sang and the time seemed to go oh so fast. But now you've grown older and how the time drags, and you're tired of hearing those old worn-out gags. The girls were so lovely, and you think of the times of those wonderful, magical pantomimes.
Oh, no, I'm not. Is it? I'm glad you told me. Oh, where are the boys of the old brigade? Principal boys of Canton. Oh, we were built for size, a pair of flashing eyes, some shape at the seat, and plenty of meat on their thighs, thighs, thighs. Everybody cheered, every time that we appeared. They raised the roof when we were on parade. A smile and a song, and what an bong bong. We're the boys of the old brigade. Here they come to
say that,
That gang of lunatics, apart from Roy, there's Tommy Godfrey, the Don Smoothie, Billy Gray, and Peter Glaze, of course. I bet that brought memories back, didn't it?
Certainly did.
Yeah.
Certainly did. Wonderful times.
What was the special chemistry that you had on stage? I'm not talking off stage with Bud. What was it?
On stage, well, we did, may I say this without any sort of boasting? We had that background. Bud had been in burlesque in America. I'd been in stock, which is rep today, so that we never stuck to our lines. We had a script, but he often say to me, say something, Ches, and I'd say something, and he'd come back, and we just carry on, and you know, we seem to know each other so well. It's like, in the nicest possible way, a marriage. We knew. He had the songs, he wrote the songs, I did the business, we did the act, and we could always say something.
Yes.
And as long as I brought him back to the queue for the song, it was wonderful. But we were great friends off. Apart from on, we played golf together. We loved racing, of course. We played snooker, and he never bothered about money. We played golf, and in the middle of it, perhaps the guys go about the third hole in the middle of it, and say, Ches, what are we getting here? I say, oh, so-and-so 90 pounds. He said, oh, I'll buy another golf club. He never bothered about it.
Yes.
He just loved life.
Is it true that there was a point in your career, though, where you thought seriously about becoming bookies, giving up the business?
Ah, yes. Well, it was just a thought. It was Florrie Ford retired. Here, Florrie and Alita, she finished and went home, and so, no, it was just a thought. We went into variety, went to the Holborn Empire with an act. We hadn't been in variety before, and we just strung three things together we'd done in review, and went to the Holborn Empire, and that was it.
And that's it, took off
Straight
from
away
there.
at the Palladium, and the Palladium and the Holborn Empire every other week for a year. And then we joined the Crazy Gang, and that's the most greatest time of my theatrical career. We had such enjoyment, so many laughs. Well, I only just hope, I'm sure they will, if they enjoy as much as I did, and everybody will be very, very happy.
All right, well,
I enjoyed it
good.
very, very much
Well,
indeed.
we've got a clip of film here, actually, to remind us not only of your relationship with Bud, the way that you work together, but also featuring a horse, actually, appropriately enough.
Really?
A film you made called Dreaming.
Oh, yeah.
Wake me 'cause I'm dreaming. I'm happy when I'm dreaming.
Though I'm by your side, with both eyes open wide,
I can picture all the world with smiling faces.
and though you're only dreaming, I'll tell you what to do.
If I find it's all in vain,
You can always dream again,
hoping this time my dream comes true.
Now, you're 88, as I say, and you're going to be there first night on stage, aren't you?
Yeah, yes, I hope to be.
Yes.
I hope to be.
Are you getting excited about the prospect?
Yes, I am.
Are you?
I am. Yes, quite excited.
Yes.
I think it's,
How long will you be in the show, do you think?
oh, well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how long, but I hope to be with it for a bit. I don't know how long exactly I will be with it.
Yes. All right.
Will be with it for
Good.
time.
Well, in fact, what we're going to do now then is we're going to see the number that you're going to do in the show itself with Roy.
Yeah?
As possibly, I suppose, the most famous song that
Well,
was associated with you.
I would think so. After all, nothing is forever, Michael, but this song may be forever.
Yes, but it's lasted a
know.
long time, hasn't it?
It's a long, long time. It's written so long ago.
All right. All right, well, Chesney, we'll go. Of course, it's the title of the show as well. It's Underneath the Arches.
Yes, you know the song.
Yes, indeed I do. So,
Yes, it's
We've got the smoke going over there,
Have you?
evoking the scene.
Have you?
Yes, we've got London Embankment
Have you?
lights, yes.
Yeah.
Would you like
So,
to go
I
across
go.
and do it? Right?
Pleasure.
All right.
Pleasure.
Chesney
Go
Allen.
back.
Oh, now,
Ladies and
listen,
gentlemen,
I'm very glad you're here. Before you start this Charlie Charm business, listen, what about that £2? You've just nicked £2 out of my dressing room.
Just don't be silly, boy. Don't be silly.
You've pinched £2 out of my dressing
But
room.
this is a Michael Parkinson.
Never mind about
show.
Michael
I never-
Parkinson. He'd nicked £2 off me out of half a
No,
jar.
no,
You've had £2
I
out of my
haven't
dressing
had. Good Lord, I haven't had £2. Do you think I'd steal £2? I can get £2 easily enough.
Yeah, you got mine easy enough, didn't you?
Dude, I've lost my watch anyway.
Never mind about your watch. What about my £2?
Do you think I'd stoop so low?
You didn't have to. It was on the drawing table.
I didn't take your £2. You think
I can't
I'd take
believe
two-
it.
just
I
£2.
can't believe it.
I wouldn't.
Chesney
take
Allen,
£2.
a man respected throughout all four corners of the circular globe. Founder member of the Saints and Sinners, ladies and gentlemen. Honoured member of the Savage Club. Respected resident of Bepton. Pardon? And light deliveries with a horse and van. I can't believe it. What are you doing? Why did you do it? What made you do it?
Oh, I don't know, boy. Something must have went snap in my brain.
That went years ago.
What are you talking about? Christ, yeah.
Oh, and here's your watch.
Yeah. It's going. I thought it had gone. Well, now, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to just a chorus of a number. I'm sure you all know it, and if you do, we would really be delighted if you'd join us. Underneath the arches, we dream our dreams away. Underneath the arches, on cobblestones we lay. Every night you'll find us tired and warm, happy when the daylight comes creeping, heralding the dawn, sleepy when it's raining, and sleepy when it's fine. Trains rattling by above. Pavement is our pillow, no matter where we stray. Underneath the arches, we dream our dreams away.
Well, that, as another famous comedian of the same vintage used to say, is your lot. My thanks to Roy Hood, to Christopher Timothy, and, of course, Chesney Allen. Not forgetting, of course, Peter Glaze, Tommy Godfrey, Billy Gray, Don Smoothie, the dancers, the singers, and the band. We wish them all well and every success. Tonight, we've been neck deep in nostalgia, so let's now wallow in it for our finale. We bid you good night with Strolling.
Just strolling in don't envy the rich in their automobiles, for a motor car is holy. I'd rather have Shanks' pony when I'm strolling, just strolling. With the light of the moon above. Every night I go out strolling, and I know my luck is rolling when I'm strolling with the one I love. Every night I go out strolling, and I know my luck is rolling when I'm strolling with the one.
Well done.